Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why and how of newspaper reading. Today we will discuss the articles displayed on the screen from the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 9 September 2019. So let us start our discussion. Now this article on page number 9 talks about Nilgiri Tahr, and it reads that the Nilgiri Tahr's population is up by 27% in the last 3 years. Now this will fall under preliminary examination syllabus under the topic General Issues on Environment Ecology and Biodiversity. So in this article, let us try and learn about the Nilgiri Tahr, its conservation status and where it is found in India. So the Nilgiri Tahr is locally known as the Nilgiri ibex or simply ibex. And regarding ibex, you should note that it is a wild mountain goat, as you can see in the picture. Regarding the location where this Nilgiri Tahr is found, you should note that it is endemic to the Nilgiri hills and particularly in the southern portion of the Western Ghats. And it is mainly found in the states of Tamil Nadu and Kerala in southern India. Further, it has been declared as the state animal of Tamil Nadu, and the largest population of Nilgiri Tahr is found in Eravikulam National Park in the state of Kerala. Regarding its conservation status, you should note that it is listed in the IUCN's Red List under the endangered category. And as far as India's Wildlife Protection Act of 1972 is concerned, this animal has been protected under the Schedule 1, which reflects the highest level of protection to any animal in India. So these are few facts related to Nilgiri Tahr which can be important for us from preliminary examination point of view. Now after this, let us look at the questions which have been asked in the previous years related to some of the important species, and from that we will get an idea as to how this section should be prepared for the preliminary examination. Now some of the questions which are asked in the preliminary examination related to important species are generally in news. For example, in the year 2019 there were 2 questions related to important species. So for example, this question read, consider the following statements, and the first statement read, Asiatic lion is naturally found in India only. And you should note that Asiatic lion was continuously in news because of large number of death of Asiatic lions in the Gir National Park of India. Further, the third statement reads that one-horned rhinoceros is naturally found in India only. And this was also in news because of a declaration which was signed in the rhino countries. So from that you should learn that it is found in India and Nepal, etc. And that is why this statement will be incorrect, because it is not just found in India only and is also found in other countries. The first statement reads that the Asiatic lion is naturally found in India only is correct. Further, the double humpback camel is naturally found in India only, which was incorrect because it is also found in the Central Asian region. So the correct answer in this case was A, that is one only. So all those species which are in news can be important for us from preliminary examination point of view. And another point to be noted is the location where these species are found. Further, the next question which was asked in 2019 was about certain characteristics of important species of animals. So for example, some species of turtles are herbivorous, some species of fish are herbivorous, some species of marine mammals are herbivorous, and some species of snakes are viviparous. Now, as far as this statement is concerned, some species of marine mammals are herbivorous. UPSC had already asked a question in the 2015 related to dugong sea cow. And in that question in 2015, it had asked if dugong was a herbivorous animal or not. And that statement was correct. So the question that was in 2015 gave you an idea that some species of mammal or the marine mammals are herbivorous. So similarly, you should be aware as to important characteristics of different species. So here, all the 4 statements were correct, and hence the correct answer was D, that is 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now if you look at the questions which were asked in the year 2017, the first question reads, if you want to see gharials in their natural habitat, which one of the following is the best place to visit? So in this case, the answer was Chambal River. So this question throws light on the natural habitat of various important species that are found in India. So you should take care while studying all these species about these aspects. Now another important aspect is the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. And the question that was asked in 2017 read, in India, if a species of tortoise is declared protected under the Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act, what does it imply? So it implies that it enjoys the same level of protection as that of the tiger.
because Schedule 1 provides highest level of protection to various animals in India. Further, this question asked, according to the Wildlife Act 1972, which of the following animals cannot be hunted by any person except under some provisions provided by the law? And the animals were gharial, Indian wild ass and wild buffalo. In this case, the correct answer was D, because all three have been protected under the various schedules of the Wildlife Protection Act 1972, and as such they cannot be hunted by any person. And this question, which was asked in the year 2016, reads, in which of the following regions of India are you most likely to come across the great Indian hornbill in its natural habitat? So the correct answer here was that it is naturally found in the Western Ghats. So again, this question is related to the location or the region where this species is found. Further, this question, which was asked in 2015, reads, with reference to the dugong, a mammal found in India, which of the following statements is or are correct? It is a herbivorous marine animal. It is found along the entire coast of India, which is incorrect because it is mainly found in the Gulf of Mannar region. Third is that it is given legal protection under the Schedule 1 of Wildlife Protection Act. So the legal protection which is provided under the Wildlife Protection Act is also important, and the correct answer here was C, that is 1 and 3 only. So all these questions highlight the manner in which one should approach the questions related to species, and while studying, all these aspects should be taken care of. Now if you go through the prelims compass of 2019, you will find that various species have been given, and various aspects of those species have also been covered in the prelims compass of environment and ecology. With this, let's take up the next article. Now these two articles on page number 9 talk about important tribes of India, and one of them is the Sentinelese tribe of Andaman and Nicobar, and other is the Sahariya tribe of Central India. So this will fall under the preliminary examination syllabus under the topic rights issues. So in this article, we will try to learn some points related to the PVTGs, or the particularly vulnerable tribal groups, and also some key points related to these two tribal communities. Now before looking at the details of these two tribes, let us understand what are the particularly vulnerable tribal groups. So these are mainly 75 tribal groups, and they have been categorized by the Ministry of Home Affairs as PVTGs, or the particularly vulnerable tribal groups. Further, these PVTGs reside in 18 states of India and one union territory, that is Andaman and Nicobar Island. Further, the criteria followed for determination of PVTGs are: first, a pre-agricultural level of technology; second is a stagnant or declining population; third is extremely low literacy; and fourth is the subsistence level of economy. And you should note that Ministry of Tribal Affairs is implementing a scheme of development of particularly vulnerable tribal groups, which is exclusive to these PVTGs. And under this, various initiatives are taken related to education, health, livelihood, conservation of culture, etc. Now in the preliminary examination of 2019, there was a question related to PVTGs. So the question read, consider the following statements about PVTGs in India. First is that PVTGs reside in 18 states and one union territory, which is correct. Second is a stagnant or declining population is one of the criteria for determining PVTGs. Third is that there are 95 PVTGs officially notified, which was incorrect. Fourth is that Irular and Konda Reddy tribes are included in the list of PVTGs, which is correct. So if you know that there are only 75 tribal groups which have been categorized as PVTGs, you can easily eliminate the options A, B and D. With this, you can come to the conclusion that option C is the correct answer. Now the first news article was related to the Sentinelese tribe, and they were in news in the last year because these Sentinelese tribes in Andaman Nicobar Island had allegedly killed a foreign national who had entered into the North Sentinel Island. So recently, a publication by the Anthropological Survey of India has thrown light on this incident. So in this regard, let us understand what and who are the Sentinelese tribes. So these are one of the most isolated tribes of the world, and they speak language which is not comprehended by anybody else. And these languages are not even comprehended by their neighbors, who are the Onges. Further, this community is a hunter-gatherer community, and they get their food through fishing, hunting, collecting wild plants, etc. Now these tribes are very vulnerable to germs, and this is because they have not been in contact with the outside world. So even a common flu virus carried by a visitor could wipe out the entire populations. Now, which other tribes are present in the Andaman and Nicobar Island? So, besides Sentinelese, there are 6 other primitive tribal groups, which are the Onges, Jarawas, Andamanese, Shompen, and the Nicobaris. So, these are the tribal groups which are mainly present in the islands of Andaman and Nicobar. These Sentinelese tribes are present in the North Sentinel Island. And this island is a reserved area under the Andaman and Nicobar Regulation Act of 1956. So this is a reserved area for these tribal groups, and according to this regulation, entry to this reserved area is prohibited. And people are allowed in this reserved area only on the permission of Deputy Commissioner of Andaman and Nicobar. And as one foreigner tried to trespass into the reserved area for Sentinelese, this tribe became aggressive and allegedly killed that foreigner. The second article is related to the acute hunger and malnutrition problem amongst the children in Sahariya tribes in the state of Madhya Pradesh, etc. So these Sahariya people live in Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan and are the largest among the PVTGs with a population of more than 4 lakh people. So the Sahariya is also one of the particularly vulnerable tribal groups as identified by the Ministry of Home Affairs. Now these are mainly influenced by Rajasthani culture, and they speak local dialect of Rajasthan, which is known as the Hadoti language, which is prevalent in the Kota district of Rajasthan. Mainly these people are engaged in agricultural work, and they also collect forest products, etc. and sell them in the markets in cities. However, this community has higher incidence of illiteracy, malnourishment, poverty, and they face social and geographic isolation. And that is why they have been included into the group of PVTG tribes. Now in the year 2014, there were 2 questions related to tribal communities. The first question read, with reference to the Changpa community of India, consider the following statements. The first is that they live mainly in the state of Uttarakhand. Second is that they rear the Pashmina goats that yield a fine wool. And the third is that they are kept in the category of scheduled tribes. Now here the first statement was incorrect because the Changpa community is found in the Ladakh region of Jammu and Kashmir. However, the second statement was correct because they are into the rearing of Pashmina goats which yield a fine wool, and also they are kept under the category of scheduled tribes. Hence the correct answer was B, that is 2 and 3 only. Further, the next question which was asked in 2014 was that every year a month-long ecologically important campaign or festival is held during which certain communities or tribes plant samplings of fruit-bearing trees. Which of the following are such communities or tribes? So the correct answer here was B, that is Gond and Korku. Now besides important tribal communities, questions have also been asked in the preliminary examination as well as mains examination related to various provisions in the Indian Constitution for tribal groups. For example, in the Indian Constitution, the 5th schedule and the 6th schedule deal with the provisions related to tribal communities. Further, 2 important acts, namely the PISA Act and the Forest Rights Act of 2006, have been enacted for the betterment of the tribal communities. And many questions have been asked based on these acts as well as on 5th and 6th schedule of the Indian Constitution. So you should read about these acts and 5th schedule and 6th schedule from your polity section. With this, let's take up the next article. The lead article on page number 10 talks about the various problems of the Panchayati Raj institutions and how the present day functioning of the Panchayati Raj institutions is against the envisaged goal of the 73rd and the 74th Amendment Act. So this will form a part of the General Studies paper 2. Now previously in the years 2015, 2017 and 2018, there have been questions related to Panchayati Raj system and the associated problems of this system. For example, in the year 2015, the question read, in absence of a well-educated and organized local level government system, panchayats and samitis have remained mainly political institutions and not effective instruments of governance. Again, the question in 2017 read, the local self-government system in India has not proved to be effective instrument of governance. Critically examine the statement and give your views to improve the situation. Again, in 2018, the question read, assess the importance of panchayat system in India as a part of the local government. Apart from the government grants, what sources the panchayats can look out for financing development projects? So all these have highlighted the issues related to the functioning of Panchayati Raj institutions in India. So in this regard, let us look at the points which have been highlighted by the author in this article related to the functioning of Panchayati Raj institutions. Now, before going through this article, all beginners should read the chapter of Panchayati Raj institutions from M. Lakshmikant to understand the problems which have been highlighted in this article. Now, this article mainly highlights the problems associated with the democratic decentralization process which was started by the Constitution's 73rd and the 74th Amendment Act. And the article mentions that in the name of decentralization, according to the Constitutional Amendment Act of 73 and 74th, the state governments have tried to delegate the powers at the bottommost level. And this delegation of power by the state government at the local level is very different from the actual goal which was envisaged by the Amendment Acts of 73 and 74. So the author highlights that the actual goal of the 73rd and 74th Amendment, that is the decentralization and the devolution of power, has not happened. And what has actually happened is merely the delegation of power by the state governments at the local level. So in this background, let us understand the difference between the terms decentralization, devolution and delegation of power. Now, decentralization simply refers to a constitutional transfer of power from the central government to the lower level in the political administrative system. Now, in the process of decentralization, there is transfer of powers or redistribution of authority, responsibility and financial resources for providing public services among different levels of government. And in such decentralization process, there is transfer of responsibility for planning, financing and management of certain public functions. Now, a type of decentralization is known as devolution. And in devolution, the governments transfer the authority for decision making, finance and management to the quasi-autonomous units of local government with corporate status. So the process of decentralization and devolution simply means that in these processes, the governments transfer the authority for decision making, finance and management to the local level governments. However, delegation is a process which is different from the process of decentralization and devolution. And simply the delegation means the process of giving permission by the head of the department to the subordinates to do work or to make decisions. Now, in this process of delegation, the subordinates at the local level have limited powers. And they can only function when such a power has been transferred by the central authority. So in this process, the transfer of power from the central to the local level is of limited nature. And when there is delegation of power at the local level functionaries cannot function independently and cannot meet the aspirations of the people on the ground. So what the 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment had envisaged was the process of decentralization and devolution and not the process of delegation. However, the way in which the Panchayati Raj institutions are functioning presently, it seems that the state governments have only been delegating their power and have not actually devolved or decentralized the powers. Now let us look at the problems which are being faced by the Panchayati Raj institutions in their functioning. So the three important problems which are faced by the Panchayati Raj institutions are related to funds, functions and functionaries. Now, as far as functions are concerned, the Constitution in the 11th schedule and the 12th schedule has provided various subjects which can be transferred to the local level governments. However, even after the addition of the 11th and the 12th schedule, the state governments have not transferred these subjects to the Panchayati Raj institutions. Secondly, let us look at the problems of finance which are being faced by the Panchayati Raj institutions. So there are constraints in the structure adopted by the states to transfer the money to the local body. And in many cases, the amount of money set aside for transfers to the local governments are too less to meet the basic functions of the local bodies. So the amount is not enough for the functioning of local bodies like the panchayats and the municipalities. Thirdly, the money which is provided by the state governments to the local bodies is tied with several conditions. And this makes the money inflexible for use. So only if the Panchayati Raj institutions meet certain conditions, they can spend or use that money. So in such a manner, the functioning of the Panchayati Raj institutions is not independent of the state government's directions. And finally, the local bodies are not self-sufficient to raise their own funds through taxes, and there is very less effort by the state governments in enabling and strengthening the local governments to raise their own taxes and user charges. Now, generally, there is a tendency among state governments that they do not want to transfer the powers of taxation to the local level governments. This is because by having financial control, the state governments try to control the functioning of the local level governments. So these are some of the issues related to the funds for the Panchayati Raj institutions. After this, let us look at the problems of functionaries or the staff in the Panchayati Raj institutions. And this article highlights that there is extreme shortage of staff to perform basic functions at the local levels. And most of the staffs are hired by higher level departments which are placed with the local governments on deputation. Now, as these functionaries are not recruited locally and they are sent on deputation by the higher level departments, they do not take up the responsibility for their functions. And they are mainly answerable and responsible to the higher level departments from where they have been deputed to these local bodies. And this creates a kind of artificial shortage of the functionaries or the staff at the local level in the Panchayati Raj institutions. Now, another issue that the Panchayati Raj institutions are facing are the postponement of the elections of these local bodies. And some states like Gujarat and Tamil Nadu have postponed the local elections despite the constitution providing mandatory elections after every 5 years. Now, as the constitution has mandated compulsory election to the local bodies, the Supreme Court in one of the cases of the Gujarat government's postponement of the Ahmedabad Corporation's election has said that such postponement cannot be allowed under any circumstances. Further, the author highlights that by postponing such local elections, the state governments are missing out on the funds which are provided by the Finance Commission from the Union government. Now, after this, let us look at the issue of centralization of various schemes of the Government of India. Now, various governments at the center have proposed to involve local governments in implementing the centrally designed programs or schemes. However, there is use of technology and this limits the participation of the local governments. Now, this is because mainly technology is being used as a service delivery tool, and in this process, the panchayats have become front offices for several union government programs. So as the service delivery is being aimed by the technology, most of the functions of these schemes are controlled by the central government. And as such, there is limitation on the powers and the functionings of the local governments. Further, various programs like Smart City program do not involve the devolution of funds to the municipalities. And in such a scenario, the efficacy of municipalities become limited. Further, in various schemes and programs, the state governments are asked to create special purpose vehicles for the local grants. And in such a scenario, these grants are not mixed with the municipality budgets, and it further limits the functioning power of the municipality. And since both the central government control schemes are operating at the local level, the people are not able to distinguish between the powers and the functions of the municipality and the central government schemes. And that is why they are not very much interested in the municipal governments at local level. And finally, the author has highlighted the issue of corruption. So in this line, the author has highlighted that the higher officers are generally posted at the local levels by the support of members of legislative assemblies or the MLAs. And these higher officers which are posted at the behest of MLAs extract bribes from the local government for various clearances of the planning related to the Panchayati Raj institutions. And this shows the corrupt relationships between the political representatives and the officials. So the author has highlighted the problems related to the funds, functions and functionaries, and also the issues of postponement of elections and simultaneous functionings of the schemes which are generally of centralized nature. And this does not provide the freedom to the municipalities to implement various schemes at the local level. And finally, he has highlighted the problem of corruption in the local level governments. So in this background, let us understand what are the various solutions that have been provided by the author to solve the problems of Panchayati Raj institutions. Now, to improve the functioning of the Panchayati Raj institutions, the author has suggested that the Gram Sabhas and the ward committees in the urban areas should be revitalized. Now, you should note that there is compulsory provision for Gram Sabhas at the Panchayat level and ward committees at the municipal level under the Constitution of India. So, the author says that the role and the functioning of the Gram Sabhas and the ward committees will have to be revitalized. So in this line, it is suggested that the role of Gram Sabha needs to be broadened and must be made more people-centric, where the local citizens can participate and are able to express their opinion. Further, new systems like the SMS service or the social media groups could be used for facilitating discussions between the members of a Gram Sabha. So he also suggests the use of technology for improving the discussion level between the members of Gram Sabha. Further, author suggests that the panchayats at times are burdened with the work of other state departments without getting any additional compensation. So in this line, it has been suggested that the local governments must be enabled to hold the state departments accountable and should be able to provide quality and corruption-free services to them. And this should be done through agreements at the local level, which will be known as the service level agreements. And through these agreements, the state departments can be held accountable and there will be improvement in the quality and there will be corruption-free services. Further, as we know that the local bodies are facing the issue of finances, and in such a scenario, local taxes must be collected and appropriated by the local bodies. So this will increase their ability to raise the revenue along with their accountability. Further, the author says that it is much easier to keep the track of corrupt local governments at the local levels as compared to the governments at the higher levels. So in this light, there should be more participation of people, and if it happens, there are chances of more transparent and accountability in the local system. And finally, the author highlights that to strengthen the local governments, there is a need for more structured decentralization of power at the administrative and the financial level, and not just the implementation of schemes at the local level through the delegation. So as we have learned in the beginning that delegation is a bit limited effort of transferring power. However, the more effective way of transferring power is the decentralization or the devolution, which has been envisaged in the Constitution of India. Now, some of the points mentioned in this article can be used in answering these questions which have been asked in the previous years. So go through the chapter in M. Lakshmikant and use all these points along with those points and try and answer these questions from your mains examination point of view. With this, let's move to the next article. Now, this article on page number 1 is related to the Article 371 of the Indian Constitution. And in this, the Home Minister has said that the government will not dilute the Article 371, and he has assured the northeastern states at the meeting of the Northeastern Council or the NEC. So this will form a part of the preliminary examination syllabus under the topic Indian Polity. Now the Union Home Minister has said that the government will not dilute the provisions of Article 371 of the Indian Constitution in the light of the dilution of the Article 370, which had certain special features related to the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Further, the Union Home Minister has clarified that Article 370 was temporary in nature. However, the Article 371 provides for special provisions with respect to the states of northeastern India. Now you should note that in the Article 378, there are special provisions for 10 states of India. So it not only includes the northeastern states, but also includes some of the provisions related to the state of Andhra Pradesh, Goa, Karnataka, etc. So details of these articles and special provisions with related to different states can be read through the M. Lakshmikant of Indian Polity. Also, some of the details will be provided in today's PDF. So after this, let us understand the key features of the Northeastern Council and when was it created. Now in the M. Lakshmikant of Indian Polity, you will find a chapter which is known as the Interstate Relations. And it provides various articles which have been created by the Indian Constitution for interstate relations. So these famous articles are Article 262 and Article 263. Article 262 provides for the resolution of interstate river water disputes, and the provisions related to these articles are given there. Further, the Article 263 provides for Interstate Council, which was created in the year 1990. Now, besides these two constitutional provisions, the chapter throws light on various statutory provisions related to interstate relations. So, according to the State Reorganization Act of 1956, 5 zonal councils were created in India. And as late as 1971, a new council was created through an act of the parliament which is known as the Northeastern Council Act of 1971. So this Northeastern Council is the nodal agency for economic and social development of Northeastern region, and it consists of 8 states which include Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Sikkim and Tripura. Further, this body is to act as an advisory body. So you should note that the advice given by the Northeastern Council is not binding on the government, and it is merely an advisory body. And this body has been instrumental in providing a planned and concrete efforts towards rapid development of the Northeastern region in all spheres of socio-economic life. So the point that should be noted here is that the Northeastern Council was created by an act of the parliament, which means that it is a statutory body and it is not a constitutional body. Further, the role of Northeastern Council is advisory in nature. So in today's PDF, you will find the composition of the Northeast Council and who all are the members of the Northeast Council. So you should go through the PDF to understand those aspects or the composition of the Northeastern Council in detail. With this, let's take up the next article. Now this article on page number 10 talks about the issues between US and Europe in the light of sanctions on the Iran imposed by the United States of America for its nuclear program. Now without getting into the details of this article, let us take out important points for us from the preliminary examination point of view. So one such important aspect is the INSTEX system which has been created by the Germany and the EU to bypass the sanctions of the United States on Iran. Secondly, let us look at the Strait of Hormuz, which is important for us from exam point of view. So both these will fall under the preliminary examination syllabus under the topic current events of international importance. So regarding the location of Strait of Hormuz, it is located in the Persian Gulf and it connects the Persian Gulf with the Gulf of Oman. Now the importance of Strait of Hormuz is that it is one of the important strategic choke points of the world. This is because majority of oil tankers pass through this narrow strait. And if there are tensions in this region because of the sanctions which are imposed by the United States on Iran, Iran can block this narrow passage of Strait of Hormuz. And if it chooses to do so, it will impact the supply of oil to different parts of the world. So that is why the Strait of Hormuz and its location is important for us from exam point of view. After this, let us understand the mechanism which has been created by the European Union to bypass the sanctions of United States on Iran. Now, as we know that the United States has imposed sanctions on Iran regarding its nuclear program, the UK, France and Germany, which are part of the EU, have registered a new special purpose vehicle. And this special purpose vehicle has been called as the Instrument in Support of Trade Exchanges, or the INSTEX. And it has been registered in France in 2019. Now, what is the purpose of this special purpose vehicle? So it is intended to allow the EU entities to conduct non-dollar trade with Iran. So by allowing the EU entities to conduct non-dollar trade, it can easily circumvent the US sanctions on Iran. This is because in the background of sanctions on Iran, it would be impossible or difficult to trade in dollars. And that is why such a special purpose vehicle has been created by the EU countries. Now, in response to this INSTEX, Iran has also set up its counterpart body, and this is known as the Special Trade and Finance Institute. And the purpose of both these institutes is to circumvent the US sanctions on Iran and continue with trade between the EU countries and the Iran. So both these initiatives can be very important for us from the preliminary examination point of view. Now, both the INSTEX and the STFI were conceived as a mean to match the trade of Iranian oil and gas exports to EU against the purchases of the EU goods by Iran. So initially both were meant to match the oil and gas from Iran with that of purchase of EU goods by Iran. Now the intention of Iran was to match all the EU goods which are imported into Iran. However, the EU wants that it should not be applicable to all the EU goods and should be restricted to only small number of goods. Further, countries like India and China have shown interest in the INSTEX, but they have not moved forward into formal discussion on this topic. So these are few important initiatives and can be important for us from the preliminary examination point of view. With this, let's move to the next article. Now this article on page number 11 is related to the Yemen war, and it says that the Saudis have lost the Yemen war. Now the latest development in the Yemen war have been covered in the video of 14th August 2019. So let us revise from that video various aspects and developments in the Yemen war and what all is important for us from the preliminary examination point of view. So this will form a part of the General Studies paper 2 under the topic International Relations. Now what is happening in Yemen is that there is a crisis or a conflict that is going on between the Saudi Arabia led coalition which is fighting against the Houthi rebels which are supported by Iran. And due to this conflict between the coalition and the Houthi rebels, the Yemen is facing a big time humanitarian crisis, and it has led to a famine-like situation in the country of Yemen. Now as you would be knowing that Saudi Arabia is a Sunni dominated country while Iran is a Shia dominated country. And this coalition which is led by Saudi Arabia was earlier supported by the United Arab Emirates or the UAE. So now as we have learned that the Saudi led coalition is fighting against the Houthi rebels which are supported by Iran, let us understand what was the original goal of the Saudi Arabia. So the original goal of Saudi Arabia was that it wanted to push back the Shia Houthi rebels which are supported by Iran from the capital of Yemen. And it wanted to restore the government which was ousted by the Houthi rebels. So as we know that the coalition is fighting against the Houthi rebels, one of the members of this coalition was Southern Transitional Council or the STC. Now this STC has rebelled against the coalition itself, and that is why now the conflict has turned into a three-way conflict wherein the Houthi rebels, the coalition and the Southern Transitional Council, each of them are fighting against each other. And these STCs are backed by the United Arab Emirates. Now earlier the UAE was supporting the Saudi Arabia and the coalition. Now the reason for UAE supporting the STC and not supporting the coalition is that it is frustrated because of the long period for which the conflict has been going on. Now the UAE has already pulled out of the Yemen war and has left it to the Saudi Arabia to defeat the Houthis. However, it still wants to have its own influence in the Yemen, and that is why for creating and maintaining this influence, it is supporting the Southern Transitional Council. So these are the latest developments in Yemen. However, previously also there was a location in the Yemen which was in news. So let us understand what was that location and why is it important for our exam. Now the Hodeido was in news because Saudi Arabia led Arab coalition forces seized the Hodeido airport from Houthis in June 2018. So we should know the location of Hodeido from our prelims point of view. Now Hodeido lies in Yemen and it opens in the Red Sea. And you should remember that it does not open in Gulf of Aden. So it is important to remember that Hodeido opens in Red Sea. Now understanding the issue that is going on in Yemen, it is a conflict between the Arab coalition with the Houthis who are considered as the rebels. And these Houthi rebels are supported by Iran. So this conflict has led to a humanitarian crisis in Yemen. And we should know that Houthis are an ethnic group in Yemen that predominantly belong to the Shia sect of Islam. Now why is the Hodeido airport important for the Arab coalition? It is because it serves as a major route of Iranian imports to the Houthi fighters in Yemen. So the Arab coalition wants to control this Hodeido airport in order to stop the support of Iran to the Houthi fighters or the Houthi rebels. So these are the important facts related to the Hodeido airport, and the location of Hodeido is important for us from prelims point of view. And we should also know that this conflict between the Arab coalition and the Houthi rebels which are supported by Iran has led to a humanitarian crisis in Yemen. Coming to the question that was asked in 2018, the question read, very recently in which of the following countries have lakhs of people either suffered from severe famine or acute malnutrition or died due to starvation caused by war and ethnic conflicts? So the correct answer in this case was Yemen and South Sudan. So such events are important for us from prelims point of view. That is why Hodeido also becomes important for the next year's preliminary examination. Now after today's discussion, try and answer these questions and the answer will be displayed after 5 seconds. The first question reads, consider the following statements. The first is that Nilgiri Tahr is endemic to the southern part of Western Ghats, which is correct as we have learned today. Second is that it is the state animal of Kerala, which is incorrect because it is the state animal of Tamil Nadu. Third is that it is protected under the Schedule 1 of Wildlife Protection Act 1972, which is also correct. Hence the correct answer is B, that is 1 and 3 only. The second question reads, Sahariya tribe lives mainly in which of the following states? So as we have learned, it lives in Madhya Pradesh, so D is the correct answer. Third question reads, consider the following statements about Article 371 of the Indian Constitution. First is that it provides special provisions for 8 states, which is incorrect because it provides special provisions for 10 states. Second is that it provides special provisions for northeastern states only, which is also incorrect because it contains provisions related to the Goa, Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka also. That is why the correct answer is D, that is neither one nor the second statement are correct. The fourth question reads, which of the following are correct about the Northeastern Council? First is that it was created by an executive order of the cabinet, which is incorrect because it was created by an act of parliament and it is a statutory body. Second is that its decisions are binding on the member states, which is also incorrect because it is merely an advisory body. That is why the correct answer will be D, that is neither statement 1 nor statement 2 are correct.
With this, we have come to the end of today's discussion. Now let's move on to the question for the day.